The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. Don, it is 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. We just got through a nice snowstorm that hit the entire eastern half of the country. We're digging ourselves out here in Western New York, but we made it to the studio to film, to talk everything Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the looming government shutdown that we might be going through again. Gold and silver prices are ripping. And we're going to talk about some stories in regards to the Fed, some stuff going on with the Fed in regards to the yen, treasuries in the yen, and also everything Bitcoin. We'll start with the markets where they are down, at least in the last 7 days since we've filmed last. 88,367 is the current price of Bitcoin, down about 4.4% in the last 7 days. In the last day, though, the price is up 2.28%. Total crypto market cap, which I believe I'm going to have to refresh the screen. Yeah, because that was a little bit too high. 2.98 trillion. Fear and greed index down from last week to 29 at fear. Going down the altcoin list, Ethereum trading under 3K at 29.33. XRP under $2 at 190. Solana at 124. And as you look down the right side of the screen, you can see red, plethora of red in the top 20 coins, which is, the market doing its thing. Kind of a lull. First thing we're going to talk about is the lead and the betting markets. The Kalshis and the poly markets have a 78% chance of the U.S. government shutting down as of right now. Donald Trump warned that without border funding, the government stops. The market ignored the risk until today. I think they'll probably do it again. Is what Trump said. The probability of a shutdown by January 31st just hit 78% on poly market. The deal is dead. The House passed the funding bill on Thursday. The Senate just blocked it over ICE disputes. We are staring at a January 30th deadline. Today's the 26th, so that's 4 days away. Could this still be political theater? Sure, a last-minute deal is possible. No is trading at 22 cents, but the market is no longer pricing this as a bluff. With the Senate deadlocked and only 5 days left, smart money bets the lights are going out this time. Don't just watch the news, trade the outcome. Do you think, the market is betting on a collapse? Do you agree? The last one was the longest in history, with 40-something days we were at, 44 days, 45 days, whatever the case may be. So if we go to another shutdown, I wonder if the betting markets, I haven't looked, are betting that it's going to be longer than the last one, or will this be a quick one? I don't know. What do you think? What are you thinking, Rich? This is more of the politics, is more your side. It's not looking good. I mean, 8 out of 10 chance that we're going to shut down. I mean, I
feel if we go into a shutdown, there's a really good chance that this one goes longer, mainly because the last one ended because the Democrats had voted to open, who were handpicked because they were safe, were promised things, and in their minds, and again, I'm not going to take sides on any of this shit, they didn't really get what they wanted, or it took a long time it was mainly on the healthcare stuff, and so you could argue that maybe because they were able to extend the subsidies, which seemed to be the big thing that was holding it back. And then Republicans did vote, so maybe there's a chance to be shorter. But my gut tells me that with some of the other things that are going on, I don't see, especially now that we're into the election year, and I think a lot of Democrats think that this will help them in re-elections. So I would be surprised.
Shutting the government down again?
Was that?
Shutting the government down again will help them?
I think they think, and I have no idea because I'm not a pollist, I think that they think it will benefit them if it ends up being shut down, especially if they don't cave on things that they were. A lot of folks felt that the ones that voted to end the shutdown caved.
The two longest shutdowns in history are both under President Trump. He had one last term. I think it was 2017. Yeah. That was the previous longest. And then the one that we just had last year was the new longest. If we go longer, this one, even if we go somewhere in between the last two and he has the top 3 longest government shutdowns in history, That's terrible for his legacy. No matter what you believe, why we're shut down, if the Democrats have something to do with it, the Republicans have something to do with it, no matter what, legacy-wise, the optics are terrible. It just looks really bad for him. It's just
and I agree with that. I feel like that. I don't know the numbers offhand, but I don't like. He's always chasing ghosts. This president is always chasing ghosts of other presidents.
Agreed.
Whether it's Obama or Reagan, or I was better than this one, or I was better than that one.
Monroe Doctrine, like we're hearing a lot of old
I was
president
better
names.
than
Yep.
Teddy, I'm better than Teddy Roosevelt.
Yep.
Like he's whoever it might be.
They say they
say
out there.
I'm more popular than Teddy ever was, and all that stuff. And it's funny because like I think like the difference is Reagan had a mandate, definitely with the re-election, when he carried 49 of the 50 states. And I know that that's not how whatever works, but nobody did that many states, covered that many states before. He was the first one that had. The only one he didn't cover was, ironically, Minnesota, because that's where Dukakis was from. So that was the
not
one.
Dukakis. What Dukakis was Bush. Dukakis was Bush. The second, the guy in
no.
Mondale. Was it Mondale?
No, Mondale's Republican. Who did he run against? Well, yeah, Mondale.
Yeah, it was Mondale.
State.
Yeah,
that was the only one that he didn't carry. And I think like there's somewhere in his mind, because he's so competitive with and that's fine because that's how he was successful, I guess, is being so competitive with people about so many things. Like I think that he just can't help that somebody else got something he didn't get. Like he's just that
I think we're a year, we're 5. We have 5 years to judge him on right now. So we still got 3 left. We're more than halfway through everything with him. In my opinion, at least economically, he doesn't hold a candle to either Reagan or Clinton, if we're being completely unbiased. Reagan took us out of one of the worst economic, the inflation of the 70s, the oil embargo, interest rates being absolutely astronomically ridiculous. I remember my parents telling me that their first mortgage was 19% of their house. It was ridiculous. Right. And Reagan took us out, all Reaganomics, trickle down, all the shit you want to say, Iran-Contra, a lot of things that he definitely had missteps with. But economically, he left things way better than he found things. And even Clinton left with a surplus.
Yeah, without a doubt. There were, again, I'm old enough to remember the oil embargo and all that stuff of the 70s and gas and everything. And I remember, I've told the story before, my dad getting the silver out of his safe.
Yep.
And counting how much it's worth in case he felt he needed the cash in.
Yeah.
We weren't struggling.
Ironically, we're back in that same time again.
And he was wondering if this was the time. And I was little and didn't quite understand it, but I do remember and there was, and the government was spending in weird ways at that point. And that was one of the things I think Reagan did, especially making sure, he was very big on national defense, and it was the right time to do that. There's conflicting, opinions on what happened to Russia, the Soviet Union, all that stuff. But clearly, yes, the economy. I went to Europe in 1985 after I graduated from high school, and the American dollar has never been that strong, ever. You can't tell me a time ever.
From 85?
My American dollar is worth twice as much as the pound.
Yeah.
I mean, I was giving away American money to buy things when I was there in 85, and it has not been that strong against the pound. Now, again, let's talk about currencies that aren't what's the pound worth? But we haven't been even close to the pound in 25 years.
Reagan took office 9 years after we came off the gold standard. Yep. 1971, we come off the gold standard. Reagan takes office 9 years later in 1980. So he takes an economy over that the late 70s, the mid to late 70s, the debacle with Carter, all that stuff going on, interest rates being high, inflation, and by 1988, again, say what you will about all the there's a lot of debating we can have about things that weren't great about his president. Even though to me, Reagan's my favorite president, but I can acknowledge that there are things he did wrong during that presidency. But economically, he left things much better than he found things. And then you had that little blip in the road with Bush 1, and then Clinton takes over, and we have a surplus, which we haven't had since. Right.
So, and I think the one thing that I will say Clinton did is that if you were government fiscal responsible guy. There were things that he did that by nowadays would be considered, conservative, but he did things that were relatively liberal for their time.
Tough on immigration.
And it was an adjustment.
He was tough on immigration.
Yeah, and he was. And there, and if anybody,
which
if
Democrats
anybody,
forget.
But the funny thing was, who was the one who actually signed a leniency thing against immigrants? It was Reagan.
Yeah.
So I mean, all
Yeah.
these guys, it's a scale of
Of
stuff.
course.
And a lot of the troubles were in financially because of some of the Reagan decisions. But Clinton
Fair.
and Reagan both understood that it was the economy stupid kind of thing.
But the point I'm trying to make is, like, when Trump takes power in 2016, right? If you fast forward from 2016 to 2026, like, we're having some economic problems, and you got to throw Biden in the mix too. Biden has some blame. It's not all just Trump, but like, when you're judging what Trump's doing economically, like, and we can just look at what's happening right now, like currently, which is like, we're going to talk about this next story here, which I think is a big deal that, many people, mainstream media wise for sure, are definitely not talking about this. This is information you got to find either on X, or if you're, a subscriber to the Defion Productions podcast, which if you're watching this, please click subscribe, helps out the channel. We got a story that's brewing here. The Fed is preparing to sell U.S. dollars and buy Japanese yen for the first time this century. The New York Fed has already done rate checks, which is the exact step taken before real currency intervention. That means the U.S. is preparing to sell dollars and buy yen. This is rare. And historically, when this happens, global markets surge. Japan is under heavy pressure. The yen has been weak for years. Japanese bond yields are at multi-decade highs, and the Bank of Japan is still hawkish. Together, this creates stress not just for Japan, but for global markets. This is why central banks are not taking the situation seriously. Japan has already tried to defend its currency many times on its own, but failed in 2022 and again in 2024. Even the July 2024 intervention only worked for a short time. History is very clear on this. When Japan acts alone, it does not work. When the U.S. and Japan act together, it does. We saw this in 1998 during the Asian financial crisis. Japan's solo interventions failed, but when the U.S. joined, the yen stabilized. We saw it even more clearly in 1985 with the Plaza Accord, which you just mentioned that year, 1985, ironically, when coordinated action pushed the dollar down nearly 50% over 2 years. That changed everything. The dollar weakened. Gold, commodities, non-U.S. markets all pumped. If the Fed intervenes, this is how it'll play out. The Fed creates dollars, sells them, and uses the dollars to buy yen. That weakens the dollar and increases global liquidity. And whenever the dollar is intentionally weakened, asset prices usually surge. Now look at crypto. Bitcoin has one of the strongest inverse relationships with the dollar and one of the strongest positive relationships with the yen. Right now, BTC yen correlation is near record highs. But there's a catch. There are still hundreds of billions of dollars tied into the yen carry trade. People borrow yen and invest in stocks and crypto. When the yen strengthens suddenly, they are forced to sell those assets to repay loans. We saw this in August of 24. A small BOJ rate hike sent the yen higher. Bitcoin crashed from 64 to 49K in 6 days. Crypto lost $600 billion in value. So yen strength creates short-term risk for crypto, but dollar weakness creates long-term upside. Now, why is this bullish for crypto? Because Bitcoin is still well below its 2025 peak. It is one of the few major assets that has not only fully repriced the currency to payment. If coordinated intervention actually happens and the dollar weakens, capital will flow for assets that are still cheap relative to the macro shift. Historically, crypto benefits strongly from that environment. This may become one of the most important macro setups of 2026. So we've been seeing this stuff going on in Japan for a minute, like going back a couple of years, even going back to 2022 and even last year in 2024. Like this, the Fed stepping in and weakening the dollar and buying yen is a big deal. And, we've been talking about this on the podcast for a while now. Like, we're watching gold, go on this parabolic rise. Even silver is on an absolutely meteoric rise. Silver last year was like $20-something an ounce, and it's trading over $100. It's done a 5x. Like even in terms of like gold is done like getting close to a 2.5, 3x, and silver's outpaced it. So you're watching commodities make these moves And you're looking at the stock market not at a like recession crash levels. The stock market's still maintaining and pretty close to all-time highs, yet commodities are telling a completely different story. So when you're looking at the economy from a macro level, you're like, what the hell is going on? How are stocks not completely crashing if gold and silver is running? In Bitcoin, even though it's down 35%, Bitcoin's not really crashing. I mean, Bitcoin was 95K a couple of days ago. So Bitcoin's relatively maintaining while gold and silver rip. And it's like there's shit going on in the economy behind the scenes that's scary. And coming back to the conversation with like President Trump, like the things that they're doing, we're on shaky ground in the economy. Like things are we can't afford another government shutdown, in my opinion. I think that's very dangerous. And we were talking before, it's not one of the topics, but we were talking before the podcast that, the Supreme Court still hasn't made a ruling on tariffs. Are the tariffs constitutional? And that will have an effect on markets. So there's a lot of things going on that make me as a person that studies these type of markets and looks at this stuff very uneasy. I don't know. How do you feel as an outside purveyor of all this and guy that produces a finance podcast? What do you see? How do you feel about all this information?
Well, it's funny because one of the things that like some of these indicators, like this was this and the GPA was that and all that's and I was like, GDP was that, and GDP. I'm like, was it like? Then you see like there's a lot of fake growth. It's not real growth. Like the United States buying into, who'd we buy into? We bought
Argentina.
No, not just that, but the company that we bought.
We bought. Was it
tech stock?
Damn! What the hell was this? The
but
tech company.
Intel.
Intel.
It's like just weird stuff that we're doing, and like it's not stuff that we've done before, and it's almost like
unprecedented.
It's bumping up the numbers in a fake way, in my mind. And then when I saw the gold and the silver shooting up like it has, and I'm like, holy crap! Like the last time it did that was in the 70s under Carter, and
in the GFC before, in the GFC
Nixon.
After that, the Great Financial Crisis.
Yeah, and that's why like I'm like, holy crap, but it's not because we know that banks are not solvent. We know that
Facts.
that we're spending money. We're talking about giving everybody $2,000. We're talking about all these goofy things,
fiscal irresponsibility,
which are just gonna like. There's no way. These are all short-term fake things that are just going to continue to tank us. And the tariffs, one thing. I mean, we've burned relationships with so many countries. Like we've not gained anything from any of these partnerships that that supposedly we're building. They're not real partnerships, and they're not doing anything to help. I think we're going to see a tank.
I want to ask you a question because I think you can answer this more with a better mindset than I would because you're the more political guy. Do you think right now that on a global stage we have, at least in the last 25 years, maybe 50 years, the least amount of trust on a global stage by both allies and enemies right now?
Yes, without a doubt.
You believe that without a doubt?
Without a doubt. I think maybe going back to Carter because he was so weak. He was weak against Iran.
That's a good,
and
I would agree.
And I think Carter was a very, very good person, especially when he was.
I think he's the greatest post-president.
Yes.
He's done the greatest amount of humanitarian efforts in post-presidency than anybody, without a doubt.
Why did Carter get elected? Carter gets elected because the exact opposite of Richard Nixon. I mean, he's literally like in every way.
Was he the next one after?
Because Ford was in between. Ford was 2
years, right?
Half of the second half of Nixon's term.
So, did he get elected for it, or he took over?
No,
so he did 2 years, right?
Nixon resigns. He waves.
Yeah. The peace symbol. Yeah.
Ford's in there
because he was the VP.
Chevy Chase makes fun of him. He falls down the stairs a bunch of times. All that stuff. And then
the next election was Carter.
And Carter again is an overcorrection because we just
which is what we do. Which is what Donald Trump is an overcorrection for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the thing. Like
Good insight.
And so I think, yes, Carter tried to broker peace within the Middle East.
Unsuccessfully.
Unsuccessfully. Some people say it was successful, but pretty much everybody that went along with it died, was murdered and or like knocked out of power politically and then died. Like it was not good for those countries. Like Anwar Sadat was that the guy who was the leader of Egypt at the time, was like, I'm getting my names wrong, but it was like assassinated in his own parade.
Yeah.
Like people came by and killed him, and that there's no way that the country, like people within the government knew that was going to happen. No doubt in my mind. Like they were the most inept, safety squad in the history since Abraham Lincoln, and so again, because we were so weak against Iran, and even our military looked so weak because they looked so inept when the helicopters crashed in the desert. We couldn't even mount a rescue mission to get our people out. We're already looking weak after the end of Vietnam. So that's the last time we looked that weak.
Well, I mean, the Afghanistan withdrawal with Biden was
but I don't
pretty
think
bad.
we looked weak because we were the most powerful nation in the world, because even though we weren't successful in Afghanistan, we still had a military that everybody was afraid of, and our dollar was still very strong. So I don't think economically we were approachable. We were doing things in countries because of Help USA and all that stuff, USA Aid and all that stuff. So we have lost a lot of the goodwill that we had in most of those countries, in my opinion.
I think I could be wrong on this. I'm not the political guy. I think there's an argument that most of our power, a lot of our power, I wouldn't say most, a lot of our power on the world stage comes from the fact that we have the world reserve currency. And if something happened to us, it would mean that something happens to the dollar, which means something happens to global economies. So I don't think it's necessarily the strength. Like everybody's like, the dollar's backed by the strength of the military. And it's like our military is so strong. And it's like, I'm not disputing that our military isn't strong, but I don't think that we're as powerful militarily as we portray to ourselves. I don't think we're seen that way because we didn't win Vietnam. I mean, there hasn't been a war where we've like really wiped the floor outside of like Desert Storm was kind of quick, but it was like that was more for the oil and it was kind of like for show. We never really got Saddam then. We kind of went back to get him again, which was completely unrelated to the reason that we were in the Middle East again in the first place. We took 20 years to do whatever it was we were trying to start, which I don't even know what we did. Like, I don't know what the point really was at the end of the day, because we got Saddam, who supposedly had weapons that he didn't have. And, you know, the countries that we were attacking were supposedly then we kill bin Laden, and then we still, it's a big shit show. Like,
so I think that's a good point. And I think like,
it's the dollar. It's the dollar that people
the dollar
fear.
Funds all that.
Yes.
And those countries that want to buy a jet or a tank or an aircraft carrier, they believe in the American system when it comes to that stuff. Like, because we were the most, and again, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and before China really rose and North Korea and all that stuff floating around out there, but nobody was as powerful as us militarily as well as economically. We were, and you know, how many years were we the number one economy in the world? And now I think we're officially been overtaken by China now, technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that's measured, so that's more of your.
Well, you can't ever trust the numbers you see in China,
but
so
either,
allegedly,
but either
yeah.
way, like
yeah.
I think people like don't have as much faith in us on our word, and even some of the contracts and things that we've signed that we back out on, and whether it's NATO, whether it's whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot there. There's a lot there, and I just don't think I think this is probably since Carter, this is probably when we're the weakest.
This is the first administration in my lifetime, for sure, maybe ever, that has participants in that administration that for sure, I know for a fact, advocate for us to get off the dollar standard of being the world reserve currency. I know that for a fact. There's a couple guys in there that do not want us, that think we'd be better off without it. And I think that line of thinking isn't necessarily wrong, but I think there's enough people, especially when it comes to the military, who speak up and say, if we do that, then this, because then we become vulnerable. Right. Then the world no longer has a reason for us to be protected. Because 9/11 is a great example. Like when 9/11 happened, it rocked global markets.
Right.
When a bomb goes off in one of these podunk countries, it's bad. We see it on CNN, but it doesn't rock global markets. When something happens here on our soil, because of the status that we have on this financial stage, especially happening in the financial capital of the world, New York, it rocks global markets. So there's a vested interest around the world that another Pearl Harbor doesn't happen or another 9/11 doesn't happen on our soil, because yes, you can hurt and weaken us, but then it hurts everybody. Nobody wins in that scenario.
People always compare October 7th, the Israel.
Good example. There's another example.
9/11, and it did affect the markets
for like a day.
For like a day.
A day.
I mean,
if that.
Look what it did.
Maybe a
just
trading hour.
Look at the effect it had on the international airline industry. 9/11. Like, just think that alone.
For
it
sure.
Forced all these other countries to
revamp.
To say, oh crap, like we've been kind of
lax.
And not that security is like. And I've been to Europe many times since 9/11. It's not nearly like ours is. If anyways, I kind of prefer it. I feel it's actually more efficient. I actually feel it's actually more thorough.
You think it's more thorough there?
Yeah.
I've never traveled internationally.
I
only
swear to
know.
God,
I only know TSA. I don't know any.
I've literally. I think because they're using their own equipment, stuff that they've designed, they want to keep it streamlined. I'm not saying they don't believe in the security, but they don't do the security for show. I feel a lot of the airline security in the United States is for show. I think it's like, look at us, look how many this, look at this guy, and look at how much stuff it is. You're taking your shoes off. We have to do all these extra things.
I heard they stopped the shoe stuff.
They finally did.
Did they?
Stopped the
they
shoe
did.
Stuff because
doing that for 20 years.
Yeah, for
that happened like 03 or something, right?
And it was and that's my thing. I think like theirs is, again, having flown in the EU, flown into Europe, into London.
Have you flown to the Middle
Paris.
East? Have you gone to the Middle East?
Sorry?
Have you ever gone to the Middle East?
I've not gone. No,
okay.
I don't see myself going to the
I was
Middle
just
East at
yeah, I was
any time,
I've never flown internationally ever. Not even we're an hour and a half out of Toronto. I've never even flown out of that Toronto Pearson Airport. I've only flown domestically, but on my bucket list is Dubai. I'd like to go to Dubai.
Oh yeah, I mean
at some
something
point.
like Dubai.
I would like to go to Dubai. I mean that's the Middle East. I would like to go to Dubai. But part of me is like fearful of the flying experience because I'm just so used to like we do overcompensate here. But in my mind, it's like I would rather they do that and my plane doesn't blow up. So I kind of just accept it. But it's super. I've had such annoying, super like long experiences at airports that have just like ruined like flying experiences and cut into vacations. So like
the difference. That's the difference in Europe. Like airline travels, especially like so. Once you're in Europe, it's different than flying internationally. So it's funny. Like if you fly internationally, like to Europe, you know you're going
customs
from
stuff, right? You
gotta
go
from like New York or Chicago or
Toronto,
like into a major city. Like in Italy, the only major international airports are either Rome or Milan. Those are the only two if you're coming from the United States.
Okay.
But once you're in the EU or London or in England, which is
so if I were to go to Sicily, I'd have to fly into Rome.
If you were going to go to Sicily, this is how we got.
Because I'm Sicilian,
Naples.
that's just thing.
We flew to Paris, and then once we were in Paris, we did a carrier which would be similar to like a Southwest or a JetBlue, and we flew from Paris to the Naples airport, and then we took an Uber to.
Is everything like really close by train? Like as they say, like you could just jump on a train and hit multiple countries in a day.
We did not a day.
Okay,
we did,
a little exaggerated.
We did Naples to Florence on a high-speed rail in 3 hours. If I would have fly that a similar distance in the United States, it would take me about maybe slightly longer, mainly because of the security. I got to be at the airport 2 hours early.
You're right.
I got to stay an extra. I got to get my luggage.
Okay.
We're on the train. I literally look at a board, and they're like, board train 12. You go down the thing, you get on to your thing, you put your luggage in the thing, you can get up and walk around. I mean,
you know, there's another way we could use blockchain technology is at airports to verify people to make it more secure. Like I think if you we're getting ahead of ourselves, and it's a whole different conversation. But I think there's another avenue for blockchain technology with airport security to make it more streamlined. Because when you travel here in the United States, like, oh, I have a 4-hour flight, cross country, but it's like, yeah, well, you got to get there 2 hours early. Number one, so there's 6. Plus, like if you like your layover, it's just you can literally travel all day long.
The number of cancellations and the problems that we're having in the country, partially because we've gotten rid of a lot of air traffic controllers, similar to what Reagan did, broke the union. So we're having problems with air travel in this country because of a lot of that. And a lot of those are economic decisions. They're not technology decisions. They're not safety issues. They're economic decisions which are affecting the airline industry.
All right, let's jump back into another tweet from Walker at Walker America on X. Let the gold bugs and silver simps have their day in the sun. They've been waiting decades for this while their purchasing power remains stagnant. They deserve a win. When Bitcoin moves, it will move with a ferocity few are prepared for, but you will be prepared. You who created value and stacked quietly, you who watched the tourists panic and sell at each dip while you doubled your DCA and bought their cheap corn, you who ignored the fear, uncertainty, and doubt foisted upon you by shitcoin salesmen and TradFi grifters, you deepened your conviction, buying an ever larger slice of the only finite pie in the world. To my fellow humble sat stackers, be patient, your time is coming. This chop solidation under 100K is a gift. How will future you judge present you? 21 million. That is it forever. Act accordingly. I just saw before I came in, when I was at my day job, I was looking on YouTube and I saw that Peter Schiff was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And obviously Peter Schiff's doing his dances in the sun because gold is doing its running, and he's like, told you so guy. Even though like somebody like Peter Schiff, who is so maddening because he obviously understands sound money principles, he understands the hypocrisy of the Fed, he understands basic economics, but he hates Bitcoin because he's got a gold business and he's got to tout that. And he was telling people in 2013, buy gold instead of Bitcoin. And if you would have listened to that advice, even at a $5,000 gold, Bitcoin, it's sitting at 88,000, has far outpaced the gains of gold. And it just bothers me, seeing the interview because, he's acting like gold has like done something that Bitcoin has never done before. It's like, this is so amazing. This is great. And it's like, buddy, in 2011, gold was sitting at about 2,200. Earlier today, I saw gold at like 5,100. Like, we're talking about a 2.5x. From 2011 to 2026, a 15-year period. You literally, and I don't say this to be a jerk, it's just facts. You literally could have picked any other asset, not even Bitcoin. Let's not even talk about Bitcoin, which were created a couple years before that, where you're getting millions or tens of thousands of percent. You could have picked a stock, any other asset, and done better holding that from 2011 to 2026 than if you were holding gold. Like 2,300 to 50.
Gone up by more
of
than
course,
2.5x.
Yes. Like
then in that time frame, I can say without a doubt that. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I'm thinking of like one of my smaller investments that I just had in like a relatively traditional investment like thing. Nothing even stressed like crazy. It was moderately risky because it was a gift for my kids for college, so I was very careful with it. And it doubled in a less time period. I mean, like that's not like, to me, that's not like that was almost a better investment in some ways, right?
This next tweet by Joseph Consorti: silver's up 43% in the last 2 weeks, adding 1.8 trillion or one full Bitcoin market cap. Over the last 6 months, it has added Bitcoin's market cap more than 3 times over. Absolutely astonishing move. So for me, my origin story starts with silver. So part of me is excited to see silver move, even though I own very little silver now. I sold much of my silver about 10 years ago and converted it to Bitcoin, which was a far better move. I mean, I sold my silver was in the $30 range, so it's 3x. And the Bitcoin that I got back then has done 100x. So I mean, it's not even close. So the silver people that are posting their excitement, and I'm happy for it. Like, I don't want to get confused. Making money and seeing your asset price go up, like, I'm happy that silver's making the moves that it's making. And I don't think a portfolio that has silver or gold in it is a terrible portfolio. Like it's good to have some of that exposure. It's fine. Like I'm not completely shitting on it. What I'm shitting on is this ideology of people like the silver guys. Silver was $20-something like last year.
Right.
So like long-term investing, anybody that's been a silver bug for any significant amount of time has had to wait so long and could have made money in a plethora of other places than just by holding silver. So even though silver has made the move that it's made, unless you just found silver in the last 12 months.
Yeah, like if you never bought silver before.
If you didn't know silver existed and you were like, I'm just going to take a dabble like 12 months ago, then you're crushing it. You have definitely found the gold mine. No pun intended. You're killing it.
It's funny. I was just thinking about that because, I help my mother with her stuff because she's 86. And so I go through I sit down with her financial advisor every year, and he goes through the thing, he goes through the report. And he's a good guy. He's with my dad, years and years and years. And my dad was always a big silver guy. So like there is a part of his portfolio that has silver in it. And I think of the metals, of those types of things, I think that's one of the larger ones that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because my dad was just a silver guy. So I'm sorry that my dad's not around anymore, because I think he'd probably be excited that silver.
For sure he would.
Because, I said, because I remember him counting the silver. So I think he always felt silver was better than gold. And the reason why is he felt like silver we use for things like on a regular, he felt silver was utilized more in the economy as a side, just pretty things. Not that we don't use gold for other things like fillings and all that stuff, but he always felt like silver was part of electronics and that stuff, and he felt it was a better purchase thing. He always felt it was more economical to buy silver than it was
when I was a commodities guy, I had more silver than I had gold. I mean, I just would buy more silver than gold. This next story, this is kind of wild too. U.S. natural gas prices extend gains to plus 40% on the day. Now on track for one of the largest daily gains in history. Natural gas prices are now up 240% since January 16th. That's like gas prices rising from $3 a gallon to $7.20 a gallon in 5 trading days. Commodities are on fire. So not all commodity prices are good, because this is going to trickle down into the gas prices that we pay.
Especially right now.
It's not good.
No, gas, is it, let me ask you this question, because again, I don't think I understand how gas prices work then enough to answer this question for myself. Is it because of the climate, because it's so cold, or is it something else? Is there another reason why natural gas?
I thought you'd ask something like that. This first comment kind of hits it a little bit. When energy starts moving like a meme stock, it's not a trade anymore. It's a warning. Natural gas doesn't go vertical unless something in the real world is tightening fast. Commodities don't lie. They just tell the story before the headlines do. So gold and silver ripping. Now you got natural gas ripping. Like, these commodities are telling us something's breaking. And we weren't going to talk about it, and we're not going to talk about it, but I go on social media and everybody's talking about other stuff. They want to look at video angles of things, and they want to argue politics when it's like,
even if you don't want to talk about the political stuff, just think about all we're going to talk about now for the next 2 weeks is the Super Bowl. Or the Oscars and all. Yep. And these things, those are fine. They're important.
They're good distractions. They're good distractions.
These are all distractions. These are all bread and circuses. These are all things that the Romans learned, over 2,000 years ago. How to keep your people in line, distract them, and that's what all this is. And our algorithms are set to this, obviously. So if you really want to break your algorithm, and you posted I got to find a way to reset my algorithm. That was one of your posts the other day.
Yeah,
I felt the same way because I can't get away from some of the things that are out there, and it's just, again, people are just so uninformed. And that was the one thing I thought about when we were talking before the show, is that with the gold and silver and now natural gas, and I didn't even know about natural gas. It's a little scary, because the last time these things did this was the great financial crisis of the 70s.
It's a lot scary.
Because gas used to be really, really, really cheap.
It's a lot scary.
It was nothing.
This is like some people have told me that watch my podcast and see some of my postings that I'm a doom and gloom guy. I'm like, oh, the sky's falling. the sky's falling. Like I don't know what to tell people, man. Like you got to be prepared. And for me, Bitcoin is my preparation. Like I've been prepared for this for a while, but and people got their gold and silver, people feel like they're being prepared with that. But you gotta have something, because this is getting crazy.
But the thing is, like, with respect to the silver, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
so,
it's fine.
But again, the silver and the gold and the natural gas, you're buying these commodities, like, you don't have them in your safe deposit box. You don't have a lock box. It can be taken. Again, like, if I've learned anything from you, that's one of the things that I talk about. Like, I don't have the silver at my house.
There's some stories.
And it, you know what I mean? And I don't trust the people that are housing these things. And who knows? Like,
You're bringing up a good point, because there's a lot of stories going around social media now. People are having trouble getting rid of their people. They can't buy it, or they can't sell it. People aren't buying it. Like, you can't unload it.
Oh, so if I wanted to go to a jewelry store and sell my,
they're just not taking it.
They don't want it because it's so expensive.
They're not taking it.
They're not interested in buying it because it's too expensive for them.
I'm not sure the reason. It's hard for people to unload silver and gold right now.
And I think it's got to have.
You got to have guys.
It's so expensive.
You got to have. Well, here's the other thing too. There's part of that, but like, you can counter, like, the when the prices rise like this, counterfeiting goes up. True. So you got to worry about getting counterfeited, and there's ways to, like, test it and stuff like that too. But, like, you want to make transactions with people you trust, which we talk about Bitcoin. It's trustless. I don't need to trust anybody to transact. This next story I'm going to show here, Max Kaiser retweeted a Balaji post, and this is from a Balaji post in 2021, and I'm going to read it. For some time, I've been increasingly concerned that instead of marching into a future of freedom, we're heading toward a time of tyranny. I still think something like this may take place in China's sphere of influence. Arguably, it already is. But as the events of the year have unfolded, it appears that we are on track for a dictatorship of either the right or left-wing variety, but for something more like American anarchy. Squint past today's half-ignored TSA-like COVID regulations, obviously this is from 2021, and you see a half-ignored TSA-like COVID regulator, namely a failing state that people can half ignore and arguably must half ignore, because the USA itself is now the TSA, and the TSA we know is now safety theater. It is the territory governed by this inept bureaucracy. You see power outages, supply chain shortages, rampant floodings, and uncontrolled fires. You see riots, arsons, shootings, stabbings, robberies, and murders. You see digital mobs that become physical mobs. You see a complete loss of trust in institution, from the state to the media. You see anti-capitalism and anti-vaxism. You see states breaking away from the U.S. federal government at home and abroad. And you see the end of power, the revolt of the public, the defeat of the military, the inflation of the dollar, and looming ahead, an American anarchy. What's coming isn't fascism or communism like the left-wing and right-wing pundits will have you believe, even though they don't believe it themselves. What's coming is the exact opposite of that. A world where the civilized concepts of freedom and equity are extrapolated to their decivilizational limit, where you ain't the boss of me and we are all equal. We are all hierarchy is illegitimate and with its authority, where no one is in charge and everything is in chaos. You can argue that this may be preferable to the status quo. In the same way, the chaotic Russia of the 1990s was on balance better than the authoritarian Soviet Union of the 80s. You can argue it may be inevitable, as the Chinese proverb goes, the empire long divided must unite, long united must divide. And you can argue that this transitional period of anarchy may be lamentable, but it's better than the other team being in charge, and that we can build a better order on the other side. Maybe so, but prior to any rebundling, I think we're on track for quite the unbundling. There's a lot there. A lot there. And this was 2021. This is before all the crazy chaos that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, let alone the last couple of years. This is posted coming out of all the COVID stuff, which I think we've only gotten worse. We haven't gotten better. Like, things have gotten crazier. I mean, as bad as it was with the left when Biden in power and all those crazy authoritarian COVID restrictions that we had, Now we have the other side in power, and there's a lot of authoritarian shit going on with this side in power. So which side is? I don't know. I don't know, Rich. I don't know where do you lay? Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, what the problem is that it's, to me, it comes down to just hypocrisy, and it's with people's opinions, but it comes down to even the hypocrisy comes from the fact that people don't take the time to do their own research and decide their own things. So, like, I talk to a lot of people, a lot of different opinions. You and I, we've talked about this. Like, I think we similar values, but you would approach things differently the way I approach things. But then I also have my adult children that I talk to, as well as a lot of my alumni, as well as my other podcasters. And so I'm constantly around a lot of people, and the only thing I like about what's going on is that I can have conversations in person. I don't have any of these conversations. If you find me on Facebook or on any of my social medias, my business ones or my personal ones, you're never going to see a conversation. Now, some people would say, well, you're just chicken shit because you won't comment because you don't want someone to. I can't win any conversation on the internet.
Impossible.
It doesn't matter. Even if I was John Adams and I was the best negotiator in American history of the founding fathers. Like, I can't win a debate. I'm not winning a debate. I'm not going to go and debate kids on colleges or at old men at senior citizen homes or anywhere else. So I can't win those things. So I just choose to absorb information, make my own opinions, and try to make the best decisions that I can. But most people aren't doing that. There's a lot of people that are drinking a lot of Kool-Aid. Whether it's about, whether it's, I don't even want to bring up any specific examples because there's so many of why we get so inundated with things that what that really means instead of paying attention to some of the economic factors. And I think that's why a lot of younger people, are really taking it easy and they're not going to go and buy that house, and they're not going to go take that. They don't have a lot of faith that in 10 years, like, this system is going to be working at all. They have a lot of opinions that this system's about to collapse.
And that's scary because you need the next generation to continue to consume like the generation before them, or the whole house of cards comes crashing down. And I think that's what we're barreling towards. Even if we don't get, like, we're talking doomsday stuff, and even if this stuff doesn't completely collapse in the next 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years, this next generation coming back up behind us, they're not going to consume like our parents' generation did and our generation does. Like, they're looking at all the mistakes that we made, and they're doing things different. They're already doing things now early, much different than how the previous couple of generations did differently. So when they're the ones that hold and control the majority of the wealth, how they allocate that is going to be insanely different than what they're forecasting. And it's going to have ramifications across economic landscape that I don't think that the current people in power have any clue what that's going to look like.
Well, think of like the tourism industry. So, there's definitely a breakdown in our relationship with the best economic closest partner we have is Canada, even more than Mexico. Economically, as a country, Canada's a lot like us. We're a lot like Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We know that because we live right here. You really don't see a huge difference going across the border, in terms of what neighborhoods look like versus, say, going to other countries. And we've really damaged that relationship. And you could say maybe it's Canada's fault, whatever. But, because of that, it has had major effects on economics in our country. So look at the tourism industry in Florida, which that's its number one industry. And it's had a huge effect on the amount of people going. And in addition to that, you also have like the Disney World, and I happen to like Disney World, but it's become very expensive. Like, it's elitist. It's very difficult for the average family to go.
You've priced out the average family.
You've priced out, and they're playing the game. How much can we charge? How much can we put fees on before there's a revolt? And because people like Disney, because of their youth or whatever, or Disney, whatever it is, but they haven't hit that thing where they've gotten the backlash yet. So they're like, it's similar to our economy. Like, how much debt can we really accrue before people really start realizing that we're being bamboozled here? So like, they charge you for parking where they didn't used to. They charge you for this. This is higher. If you have money, you can pay extra to go to the front of the line. All these extra things. Can we keep ramping this up? And there's all these posts now that it's cheaper to actually fly to Japan and go to Japan Disney than it is to go to the one in Florida.
That's crazy.
Someone did an economic thing, and I saw the post, the way they did it. And it's like, that is kind of like where we are as a country in a nutshell. Is, like, and Vegas is another story of
Vegas
of
is
corporate greed.
Definitely down significantly with their tourism.
And they don't seem to have gotten to the point where they're getting the message yet.
Nope.
They kind of like that they've got baseball stadiums and football stadiums and all that stuff. So I think
the problem is the people that have the money right now are not going to have the money in the future. And then what do you do?
And I think that's what, like, I think those are microcosms of what's going on in our country. Like, we keep spending, we keep thinking that the market will be there, but I just don't know if it's going to be the way that they're pricing most of us out of the economy, so to speak.
I got two things to end the podcast with. This first one here is just this is just everything that's wrong with our government here. This is the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker, which is a really fun account to follow on X. They follow not just Nancy Pelosi, to be fair, they follow a lot of different on both sides of the aisle, on the right and the left, because when they make trades, it's public disclosure. They file their documents and we get to see what they did. Nancy Pelosi just filed $69 million worth of new stock trades, including selling $50 million of Apple. Major sales include the $50 million of Apple, $5 million of NVIDIA, 5 million shares of Disney, which we were just talking about. She bought call options, $500K of Google Leaps, $500K of Amazon Leaps, $500K of Apple Leaps, and $250K of NVIDIA Leaps on a $200,000 a year salary. Amazing, Miss Pelosi. Absolutely amazing. The last thing that we're going to end on here is a really, really good tweet. It encompasses the ethos of why I do this podcast, why I Bitcoin. When I have conversations with people and they ask me about Bitcoin, to teach them about Bitcoin, to talk about Bitcoin, I always start with understanding the current system that you operate in, how money works. So this kind of starts from that thought process. I'm going to read through it. Hopefully it'll probably take us the remaining 10 minutes. So I want to share this with the viewers. Again, if you made it this long, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on X, follow me on Facebook, wherever you're watching this. Please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. You're not bad with money. The money is bad. Why save and invest is a losing strategy and the one asset that actually changes the game. You followed the advice. You got the education, got the job, worked hard, showed up, delivered value, built skills, did the right things. And yet somehow you're still running in place. You're not lazy. You're not stupid. You're not bad with money. So what's going on? Let me walk you through something that changed how I see everything. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The loop you're stuck in. Here's how your financial life actually works, step by step. You spend your time and energy being productive. You create value for someone, an employer, a client, the market. In exchange, you earn a reward, money. Then you get taxed on that reward, income tax, before you even touch it. Now you have your net income. What's left? You pay your stuff to live, rent or mortgage, food, transport, insurance, all the basics. Maybe if you're disciplined and lucky, you have some left over, savings. But here's where it gets interesting. The currency you're forced to use, the one you earned, the one you saved, is being debased on purpose. Your government takes on more debt, and the central bank prints money to cover it every year on purpose. So keeping cash in the bank is a losing strategy. You will lose purchasing power. That's not a maybe, that's math. To mitigate this, you need to invest. You're forced into the casino just to stay in place. So you invest. You try to pick winners, stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever. It's difficult. Most people underperform, but let's say you make good choices. Let's say you beat inflation. You're happy, right? Until you get taxed on those gains by the same government that debased your money in the first place. Paper gains, unrealized in some cases, taxed anyway. And this continues year after year until death. Then they tax your estate. This is the loop. Earn, tax, spend, save, debase, invest, tax, die, tax. And the craziest part, this is what playing by the rules looks like. This is the responsible path, the one they taught you in school. The game isn't broken. It's designed this way. Here's the thing most people miss. The fiat money is not designed to improve your individual prosperity. It's designed to finance governments and benefit those closest to the money printer. When new money enters the economy, it doesn't arrive everywhere at once. Banks get it first. Government contractors, financial institutions, they spend at pre-inflation prices. By the time the money reaches you through wages, through the economy, prices have already risen. You're always last in line. This is called the Cantillon effect. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just how the plumbing works. The system extracts from you at every stage, when you earn and when you save, when you invest, when you die, and in between. It dilutes whatever you manage to keep. You're not failing at the game. This game is designed for you to lose slowly. This has happened before, thousands of times. Here's something that blew my mind when I first learned it. The average lifespan of a fiat currency is about 35 years. Some last longer. Many last shorter, but none last forever. The Roman denarius, the French livre, the German papermark, the Zimbabwe dollar, the Venezuelan bolivar, thousands of currencies have come and gone throughout history. Every single one of them has died, usually through the same pattern. Governments print too much, debase the currency, destroy purchasing power, and eventually the whole thing collapses or gets replaced. The US dollar has lost over 97% of its purchasing power since 1913. The euro, the pound, every major currency, same trajectory. Some faster, some slower, but all in the same direction. This isn't pessimism, it's just history. The money you're forced to use is not a store of value. It's a melting ice cube, and the people in charge of it have every incentive to keep melting it. The question nobody asks. So here's the question I started asking myself. What do I actually own? Your house? Your bank owns most of it, and the government can tax it, regulate it, even seize it under the right circumstances. Your stocks? They're held by a brokerage, which holds them at a custodian, which operates under government rules. You own a claim, a paper claim, a claim that can be frozen, diluted, or taxed at will. Your cash? It's a liability of your bank, and ultimately of your central bank. They can print more of it whenever they want. They can freeze your account just if they decide to. When you really think about it, what do you actually truly own? What can nobody take from you, dilute, freeze, or inflate away? For most of human history, the answer was not much. Maybe physical gold, if you can hide it. Maybe land, if you could defend it. But now there's something new. The one thing you can actually own. Bitcoin is the first asset in human history that you can truly own. Not owned through a bank, not owned through a government, not owned through a corporation. Own, period. 12 words, your seed phrase. Memorize it and carry your wealth in your hands across any border, through any crisis, beyond the reach of any authority. No one can print more of it. 21 million. That's it. Hard-coded, unchangeable. No one can freeze it. No one can seize it. No one can dilute it. No one can stop you from sending it to anyone, anywhere, anytime. This isn't about price speculation. I don't care if you think it's going to 500,000 or 50,000 next year. That's not the point. The point is, for the first time ever, ordinary people can opt out of the extraction loop. You can save in something that can't be debased. You can own something that can't be confiscated. You can exit a system designed to drain you. That's not a small thing. That's a civilizational shift. Why Bitcoin and nothing else? People ask me, Bitcoin specifically? Why no other crypto? Why not gold? Why not real estate? Gold is great. It's been money for 5,000 years. But try crossing a border with 500,000 in gold. Try sending it to someone across the world in 10 minutes. Try verifying it's real without specialized equipment. Gold has limitations. Real estate can be good, but you don't own it. You rent it from the government via property taxes. They can change the rules anytime, and you definitely can't memorize your house. Other crypto. Here's the thing. Every other cryptocurrency has founders, foundations, venture capitalists, people in charge who can change the rules. Bitcoin doesn't. The founder disappeared. There's no company, no marketing department, no one to call, no one to lobby, no one to pressure. Bitcoin is the only monetary network in existence that is truly decentralized, truly fixed in supply, and truly beyond the control of any single entity. That's why it's different. That's why it matters. That's why serious people are paying attention. This is about more than money. Let me go down a layer deeper here. The fiat system doesn't just extract your money, it extracts your time, your energy, your optionality, and your hope. When you can't save, you can't plan long term. You can't plan long term, you become short term oriented. When you're short term oriented, you consume instead of build. You optimize for now instead of later. The system turns you into a consumer by design. Spend now because your money's melting away. Don't save because saving is being punished. Stay on the hamster wheel because getting off means falling behind. Bitcoin reverses this. When you can actually save, when your savings gain purchasing power instead of losing it, everything changes. Your time preference shifts. You start thinking in years and decades, not months. You become a builder instead of a consumer. That is the part that's hard to explain until you feel it. There's a psychological shift that happens when you opt out of the melting ice cube, when you know your future self isn't being robbed by your present government. You feel lighter, more optimistic, more willing to invest in things that take time, more willing to delay gratification, more willing to build. It's not just financial, it's spiritual. The only way out. So here's where I land. The fiat system will continue doing what it's designed to do. Extract, debase, extract, debase. It's not going to reform itself. The incentives are too strong. You can keep playing the game. Keep running in the loop. Earn, tax, spend, save, debase, invest, tax, die. That's an option. Most people will take it. Or you can step out. Not at a dramatic, burn it all the way down, just quietly, steadily, converting your melting ice cubes into something that doesn't melt. Start small if you need to. Learn. Understand what you're holding. Take self-custody when you're ready. Think in decades. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is now. Which way are you going? I'll leave you with this. You've been told the path to financial security is earn, save, invest, retire. And if you do it just right, you'll be fine. But the system those rules were designed for is broken. Actually, it's not broken. It's working exactly as intended, just not for you. There's another path now, a harder path in some ways, because it requires you to think differently, but an easier path in other ways, because you're no longer fighting against the current. You can keep being a consumer in a system designed to consume you, or you can become a builder, an owner, someone who actually controls their future. Bitcoin doesn't fix everything, but it fixes the money. And when you fix the money, a lot of other things start to fix themselves. Which way are you going? Thanks for watching another episode of the Defion Productions podcast. As always, don't trust, verify.